Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools Let's Build, where we build applications together to help you scrappy bootstrappers out there overcome some of the hurdles that you're facing or just make yourself more efficient. Now, before we dive into today's topic, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of videos up there to talk about all sorts of low code and no code solutions out there, including Retool, Google Apps Scripts, Data Studio, as well as many others. If you don't see what you're looking for, feel free to shoot an email over to feedback@bootstrapping.tools. We'll be happy to take a look at that application and possibly make a video just for you. Now, today's topic, we're going to be talking about doing currency exchanges in Retool via an API. So the API that we're going to be hitting is called exchangerate.host. It's a free application, or it's a free API that you can use. It's open source. And the only thing that we ask is just, donate to them just so that they can keep operating and delivering these conversion rates to everybody who's using their API. But enough talk, let's go ahead and dive down into it. So up on the screen here, what we have is the exchangerate.host API service that is available. They have a really nice site over here. And it's got a lot of documentation and it supports a lot of different types. The one that we're going to be using today is the convert currency. It's located right over here. When you click on that, you're going to see the documentation for exactly what we need to do, which is essentially just hit this API endpoint, the api.exchangerate.host/convert, and then pass through parameters for from, which is the currency you're converting from, and then to, which is the currency that you're converting to. So in this example, is converting from US dollars to the European euro. Going over to Retool, have a brand new app that we just spun up recently, and we're going to be using our sample sales data from one of the other builds that we did recently. So within here, we have orders data. Within that, we have the unit sale, the quantity of it, discount, and gross revenue. Actually, you don't need the discount, so let's go ahead and just hide that. All we really want to do is the sales data and then the gross revenue. So that's the amount that we're going to be converting. Now, these numbers right now are in USD, so we're going to create a way that you can dive into each one and then convert it to a different currency of your choice. So one of the first things that we're going to do is let's go ahead and create a new column in here, which will open up a Modal. So over here on your right hand side tray, there's a little custom column button that you're going to want to click. So once you click on that, it's going to create a new one, custom column. Find that in your list over here, double click on that, and then a little pop-up will appear to give you options on what you can do. And we're going to choose the column type. We're going to set that to a modal so that we can open up a little overlay when we click on it. And then that's where we're going to be doing the conversions. So the custom column title, we can just call this convert. And then the calculation is going to be convert. Actually, let's name the column title currency conversion. Currency conversion. That'll make it a little bit more specific to each one, so the column name isn't the same as the actual value within there. We could change the color of this just to make it more clear, but that's fine. We can just leave it as is. And when we click out of this, and then we click on one of these rows, a little pop-up is going to appear, and that's where we're going to be putting our information. So let's go ahead and do an insert. We're going to insert a text field. Actually, let's not enter a text field. Let's use a statistic, and that's going to show our numbers a little bit better. So in the search components box up here, just type in stat, and then the statistic over here is the one that we're going to use. So click and drag that over to our modal. And then in here, there's a bunch of options that we can do. We don't need the caption. So we can actually say USD because that is the amount that we have here. Currency, and then the primary value for this is going to be the selected row of that table because that's the one that we actually want to display. So let's go ahead and just say table selected row.data, and then we're going to find the sales, which is now the unit sales. Now we also don't need the secondary value, so let's go ahead and just clear that out. And what we'll get is the unit sale, unit price, which is 261.98. We exit out of this, we should see it over here. For this Bush Somerset Collection bookcase, it's the right price. Click back into this, see that. Let's go ahead and just copy this down. And we're going to use this for our gross total, so our gross revenue. And then within the primary value, we're just going to set that to gross revenue. Now we have the exact amount. Let's make this wider because that's going to be a pretty big number in some cases. And what we'll do now is we're going to create a selector that you can select the different types of currency that you want to exchange into. So in the insert, let's add a little divider just to make it nice and clean. So we'll add it right underneath of the unit price and the gross revenue of the existing. And then we'll add a drop down value over here, which is just a select. We'll put that right over here. So what we need to do now is we're going to have to figure out all the currency symbols that we want. So let's say currency code. And because we don't actually have all the currency codes just yet, we can actually get it from the API. So going back over to our API documentation, we are going to use the convert currency as the main thing that we use, but there's also this option for supported symbols. And when you click on that, it's going to give you the endpoint to actually get all the available symbols that this API service supports. So copying that, let's go back over to our Retool app, and then down on the bottom over here, where it says new, let's create a new query. It's going to be a resource query. And then within the options over here, we're going to select an HTTP request. So scrolling down, where is it? Here we go, REST query, REST API. So once we select that, it's going to be a GET request. We're just going to paste our URL endpoint over there, and let's preview it, make sure that we're getting the right data. Within here, we're getting a bunch of information on it. Let's make this a little bigger for everybody. You can see that within each one, we're getting symbols. And then they also have a little message here that, you know, if you'd like to back him, just donate them like $1, or I think they're European, so maybe like €1 or €2, help them buy a coffee. Besides that, symbols. So each symbol we can get, these are actually the only ones that we want. So these are exactly how we're going to pull it out. So closing this out over here, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a transformer within here. And that transformer is how we're actually going to get the information that we want in order to actually pull the currency symbols that we're going to use in that drop down. So within the transformer, click on the enable, and it's going to return a bunch of this stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to say the symbols are equal to the data.symbols. So before we do this, let me just return the data and show you why we're doing data.symbols. So within this data set, the place where we're getting the symbols is just on the first level. So we can just do data.symbols, and then within each one, we're going to grab those keys. So now that we have data.symbols, we're going to say return object.keys symbols. All right, and what this is going to do here is it's going to iterate through all the available keys within the symbols variable within the response, and then give us all those keys back. So if we run this, we should only see the currency codes, which is the USD, the EUR, and the etc. Just like that, this displays in a nice little array for us, and there's a lot of different codes in here. So this is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and save this. And then let's call this currency symbols. Okay, we can minimize the tray again. And then within our selects, our drop down over here, click on that. And then it's going to give us all the options on the side. And what we'll do is double curly bracket. We're going to do currency symbols.data. It's going to give us all the data that we have from that API call. So with that saved, when we click on this, we should see all the different symbols, which is exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and actually rename this component so that it reads as currency codes. And we're going to reference that a little later on. So now we're going to add in more statistics. So this is going to be the ones that we convert into. Place that right here. Make that a little bigger. And then we can remove the secondary value. We're going to replace that in a bit. Let's make the label of this converted sales, converted unit price. All right. And then the caption. Now this is where we're going to use that symbol. We're going to say currency codes dot value. This is not selected right now, so when we select, let's select the euro here. So it's going to display dynamically. You see over here, it's going to display whatever we have selected in this area here. So if we select another one, CNY is going to update. So let's go back over to the euro because we kind of know what the conversion is going to look like there. All right, so zoom back out. Let's copy this. And then we'll make this one for our gross revenue here. A little misaligned, but no problem. And we'll do converted gross rev. All right, so now this is where we're going to dive into actually converting the values. So in order to do that, we're going to have to create a query, a resource query for hitting the API for that conversion. So we're going to go ahead and click on the new icon and then do resource query. And then going back over to the API documentation, click on the convert currency. And let's go ahead and just take this, copy this, and then paste it right into the GET request. And now Retool is going to be smart enough to actually notice that there are two parameters, one for the from and one for the to. It's currently just marked as USD and euro right now. We're going to change that later so that as we change the selection, it'll just update that. But for now, let's actually just run this so that we have some value back. And we'll call this exchange rate API. Right, API, and then we can do underscore convert. All right, so when this is ran, there's some values in here, and that's how we're going to map it. Let's bring this back up. So within here, there's a query, which is what we called, and then there's a result value. And the result value is what we actually want to use. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to apply it to the statistics components that we have up above. Before we do that, we also need to pass through the amount. So this amount is going to be the amount that we want to do. And so over here in the documentation, it's just optional. You can set the amount, but we want to do it to the sales unit and also the gross revenue. So because we're using two, we're going to use an open-ended variable here. So we're just going to say amount to convert, and that's not going to equal anything right now because we have to actually set it. So in one of our next scripts, we're going to actually call this API endpoint and then pass through the amount to convert as an additional scope to it when we trigger this query. So we're going to leave this like that. And then let's actually just go ahead and quickly run it. Actually, no, let's not run it yet. Let's update this. We're going to use select the currency values. So that's, what is it called? Currency codes with an S. So it's going to be double curly bracket, currency codes dot value. All right, and that's currently set to the euro. All right, so go ahead and save that. It's probably going to throw an error because we don't have any amounts, but that's okay because it's a whatchamacallit optional. So we have a result as null. So no errors. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start calling the query with the script. So we're going to create a new one. I'm going to say JavaScript query. And then within here, this is where the fun begins. We're going to get the amounts, and then we're going to set those amounts to the unit price and the gross revenue that is generated. So that's statistic 1 and statistic 2. You can go and just type in statistic 1 dot value. And then statistic 2 dot value. And now this is we're doing it as an array so that it makes it easier for us to actually call it without having to call it multiple times. We're just going to use one piece of code for this. So down here, what we're going to do is we're going to say var conversions equals to the amounts that map So what this is going to do, it's going to go through all the values that are, it's going to map that over so that we can use each one, or make an action or take an action against each value that's in this array, the amounts array. So I'm going to say amount with a fat arrow function, and we're going to say return the exchange rate API convert. I'm going to trigger it, and within this trigger we're going to say additional scope, and then within that we're going to say amount to convert, and that's going to be set to the amount just listed up here. That's how we're going to reference that. And what this is going to do is it's going to say for each value in this array, make this or take this action for it. All right, and now let me see here. I think this is actually extra. We don't need that. So it's up here. I should bring that down, make this a little neater. All right, now when this runs though, this is not finished yet, because if it runs, it's only going to give us back a certain amount of data. But what we want is we want both values to come back. So what we have to do is we have to do a promise, and we have to promise all those conversions and then return a value for each one. So over here, let's just do a return statement, and then we're going to write promise all, and that's going to be set to the conversions that we ran. And then within that, we're going to say then data. So data is just generic. We're just doing that because it's a little easier to do it. And then within that, we're going to, need the curly brackets over there. What we're going to do is we're going to return an object, and that object is going to be converted sales. I'm going to set that to data 1 because that's the first position within the statistics, within the amounts that we made. And then we're going to set the converted gross revenue to the other one. So data 1, position 1, which is the second place, the second position within the array. So now that we have this, when we run it, what we expect it to happen is it's going to give us back the converted values of this unit price to 261 and the gross revenue, which is 2839. So let's preview this. Hopefully we don't get any errors, but looks pretty good. So we're getting a bunch of queries and keys and stuff over here because we actually need to update the exchange rates API.convert to only give us back the result. So let's go ahead and save this for now. And then going back over to our exchange rates API, we're going to set up a transformer, just like we did for the currency symbols. And then we're going to say return data.result. We don't need all these comments up here either. What this is going to do is it's going to provide us back with the result because this is an amount to convert. We're not going to see it in the output here, but that's okay. You can go ahead and save and run this. Going back over to this, let's actually rename this. It's always good practice to rename this. Let's call this trigger converter. Let's go ahead and preview this. And now we can see that in the results, we're just getting the converted sales as the amount for the euro, and then the converted gross revenue in the amount of euro based on the numbers that we have up here. So this is looking really good now. The next step that we want to do is we want to update our statistic numbers over here so that it represents the amounts that we want to show. So the converted unit price, instead of saying primary value is this default 7552, we're going to say exchange rates API, no, not that one, trigger converter dot data, and then we're going to say dot converted sales. Converter dot data. Oh, we have to run this. Run this first. And then, yeah, there we go. So now we can get converted sales. That's going to display that number. And then we'll do the same thing over here for our converted gross revenue. So double curly bracket, trigger converter dot data dot gross revenue. So now that this is displaying, this looks pretty good. Click to another one, you're going to notice that these upward ones don't change with this one. So we want to also create an event handler here. So whenever you select a new row that also updates the conversion that we're doing. And while we're doing that, we might as well also set the value to 0 as it actually makes the updates, just so the user doesn't get a little confused here. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create a handler that we're going to use for the actual data within this modal over here. So go ahead and create a new resource query. Oh, sorry, not a new resource query. Ignore that. We're going to delete that. We're going to create a new JavaScript query. And then within this, we're going to say statistic 3, which is this guy over here, the converted unit price. And then statistic 4 will be the converted gross price, gross revenue. And we're going to say clear value. That's a function. So we have to add the little open and close parentheses in there. And then statistic 4.clear value. That way, whenever this runs, it's going to clear those values out first. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to say trigger converter.trigger. And then that's just a regular function, super easy. And we'll call this converter handler. All right, so we don't need this table anymore, this tray. So going over to our table, clicking on that, I'm going to go down over to where it says event handlers over here and add a new one. And then on the event that a row select change occurs, so only when you change the selection, let's trigger the query convert handler. So X out of this. As we do this, we should see that it turns to 0. And then it converts it by hitting the API, and then it'll display the latest results. So try one more time. It's going to convert different things. And then that's going to change it to 12 and 25. So we're not quite done yet. There's one more thing we have to do, and that's going to be for this dropdown, we're going to add another event handler to it. And we're going to say on change, also trigger that converter handler. So now when we have this, we wanted to say change the currency to, I don't know, what's a good one? How about British pounds? So GBP. It's going to clear those out, update it, run the API call, and then bring back the results, which is 1059 for 1462 and 2118 for that. And if we click on another row, it's going to do the same thing, clear it out, and then refresh that. And if we change this back over to euros, it should just update it for us. So we select that, converts to 0, and then makes the conversion via the API call. But that's essentially how you're going to get exchange rates, a currency exchange calculator within your Retool app. It's going to be using this API, which is exchangerate.host. It's free, so if you do like what they're doing here and you want to support them, just go ahead and donate. It really helps people like this who are giving back to the community keep the operations running without having to charge us for it. But either way, this is how you're going to do it. If you did run into any issues, feel free to drop a comment in the section below. We're always happy to help, so don't be shy. And of course, if you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button. It's the best way to support this channel and help ensure that we can continue making content for you. It also helps other scrappy bootstrappers out there find videos just like you did and learn how they can improve their business or their operations without having to break their budget or scale their headcount. Also, we got lots of videos coming up, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the bell so that you get notified when we release the next video. Of course, I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools. Let's build. It's been a pleasure, and we're out.